As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Hey, I'm Skillet.
Hey, and I'm Tyler.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast. Gosh, I'm an idiot. Right?
What is happening, all you January
Johnsons.
joyful Jubilee people out there? It is, man, today, can I be the whitetail weatherman today?
Absolutely.
This is like my least favorite of days when it's not hunting season.
Really?
It's kind of cool. Everything is gray outside, and there's just like, only signs of life is cedar trees and mistletoe, and those are both not things that I'm super hype about.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I kind of have a hard time this time of year. It just feels like we're so far from hunting season and or deer season at least, and it's just I don't know. It's just gloomy. You know, gloomy is the right word, but
gloomy.
It's still hunting season.
You'd rather it be bloomy?
No, because that's sneezy.
Yeah.
Yep. But we still have got some pretty big time hunts going here. Might still be doing some whitetail hunting. Who knows? We had to postpone a whitetail hunt this week, actually, because of weather. So we're going to do some different stuff. We're going to do a lot of pig hunting. Might even shoot some small games.
Hopefully.
Might even shoot some feathered fowls.
Feathered fowls.
Who knows?
So many different things to think about when hunting so many different types of animals. You know?
That's right, man. But we're going to talk about some pig hunt stuff a little bit at the end of this, I think, just to kind of talk about the hunt we have coming up, and then talk a little bit about getting out maybe post-season. But at the front end of this, Tyler and I have had this topic of conversation on our minds and chatting back and forth about it, and we decided, you know what, we should probably just do a podcast about this because it was a huge part of our season. The difference, the necessity, the concept of hunting out of a traditional tree stand versus a tree saddle, or diaper, or whatever you like to call them.
And we want to do a video about this eventually. We just we've been hunting, and we haven't had time.
Yeah.
So if
you live somewhere and you just don't hunt that much, towards the end of deer season, maybe you got time to do videos like this, but not us.
Because as gray and gloomy as it is out there today, it's not like up north. Like, we can still do stuff.
Oh,
you know what I mean? In the winter. Like, I actually prefer to do hard work in the winter as opposed to the summer. Yeah. Because you can die sweating.
I've been a little bit confined because of babies don't like the outside this time of year. And mine loves it, but he gets cold and doesn't really know, hey, I need to make sure I'm warm. So we don't get to do as much outside as I would like.
He doesn't like clothes either, does he?
He does not like clothes. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Kind of like me in high school.
That's right. And post-high school. But anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about this thing. I know some of y'all have asked us questions about it, and I know some of you might be worn out about it because, man, the hunting world over the past year and a half has just gone crazy about saddle hunting. And it's always, like, whatever the new rage is always presented in some stupid way because everybody's like, this is the new way to do it. It's like, no. What used to be done has always worked, but this is definitely a new tool and an asset. Well, it's not new actually, but we'll get into that some. But it's a new tool to us and an asset in a way to find new ways or better ways of killing deer in certain scenarios, right?
Yeah, way to be more effective possibly.
Yeah.
So, and the thing that makes stuff like this tough is that depending on price point, you may not be able to get into this to figure out how efficient you could be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely.
So like I'm just saying, from product to product, when people have these fads, like if it's a $50 product, it's a little different than a $500 product, you know? So like you can't just go test this thing and see, does this fit the style? Does this, work for me? So that's kind of, with a saddle or a tree stand, that's the thing, is like you're going to be spending some pretty good money. So you kind of would like to borrow one or something first. But the thing is, if somebody's got an extra saddle around, they just have money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, if they have one saddle, they're using it during deer season probably.
Yeah.
But, you never know. You can find guys that they get their 1 or 2 weeks and they're hunting November. And so if you're going to hunt outside of that, you may be able to borrow one. But that's a good way to test it.
I'm not too much like this. I'm kind of a person who doesn't really care. But the difference in borrowing a tree stand and a saddle is that a saddle is very much in your nether regions a lot too. So it's almost like borrowing another man's underwear.
Gucci Mane.
You know what I mean? So it's a little weird.
Yeah.
That's also probably a point that we need to make about the difference in saddle and tree stands, where a saddle is much more a type of apparel that you wear, whereas a tree stand is a piece of equipment, you know?
Yeah.
And that's of course the big defining difference in the two.
So what's so tell us a little bit about the history of saddles.
Man,
that
I don't know a ton, but I do know that they've been around ever since I've been deer hunting. I remember people talking about, like, it was like there was this of course, whenever we were growing up, we didn't have internet and stuff, so you just like heard people talking about stuff like this from time to time, or maybe saw it on the Outdoor Channel or something. But there was always somebody around who kind of was hunting out of this, like, pretty much arborist harness, is about what they were. They're just like a thing you wear around your waist and get up in a tree, as opposed to hunting with a tree stand. And I don't know, it didn't make a lot of sense to me growing up, because really run and gun whitetail hunting, at least where we're from, isn't a thing that a lot of people do. Most, what would you say, 95% of the people in Texas are hanging permanent stands,
I mean, and a high percentage aren't even bow hunting, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and if they are, they're hunting out of a box spine with a crossbow. These days, if they weren't very serious about it back before, now they're just crossbowing.
Yeah, a lot of people in Texas are bow hunters because it gives you more season, and that's the only reason. And it's fine if that's what you want, if that's your thing.
And that's why I like to bow hunt. A big part of it too. You know? I mean, there's other things, but I would say like big stands are the majority of what you see.
Oh yeah, dude.
People hunting out of.
And if somebody does have a lock on, it's like one of those Millenniums with that giant seat and stuff in it, which I would be all about. Cody Brown hunts out of one of those.
Does he?
Yeah, he likes it a lot.
Yeah. Did he hunt this year?
I don't know.
Call him out.
Ding.
Come on, Cody. Come on, Cody.
Really, if somebody doesn't have a box blind there, and usually a ladder stand with a big platform at the top of it, it's kind of the thing that a lot of people do around here, public and private. But
I mean, ladder stands we've seen a mile and a quarter back in.
Yeah, and they ain't coming out. No. That's the other thing. Like, I'm not going to be critical of anybody for hunting however they want to, as long as it's legal on public or private. But there's just kind of a truth about this that if you pack a ladder stand a mile and a half back, usually it ends up getting left back there. And that's why they just end up back there.
Yep.
And then you're always like, man, can I just hunt out of that thing? Because nobody's going to be there. But then, sooner or later, the first day you do, some guy's going to walk up and like, hey, sorry, dude. Rules are rules. But today's discussion is kind of going to be
inauguration based.
Yeah, exactly.
Happy Inauguration Day, guys.
Yeah.
Just so y'all know. This is a political podcast. We love doing those.
We love it.
No, I'm kidding. We just...
We like to laugh it off because we don't want to cry, pretty much. But we're going to talk kind of really hone in on the run and gun setups of like a traditional lock-on, hang-on, whatever you want to call it, versus a saddle platform setup, right? So, we were talking about the history of them. I don't know a ton about the history of them, but that's how they started.
They've been around a while, I guess.
And I think like within the past 5 years, they've been a little bit more in the forefront. There's some northern fellers who kind of made it kind of popular to talk about it. And then I think that like there's a bunch of brands out there, but like Era Hunter and Tethered kind of actually started pushing saddles, in the market more than just like a thing that guys tinker with and make at home, and that's kind of what helped it take off. They, honestly, we're going to talk about the industry, guys. The industry is driven by advertising. So whoever's willing to put advertising dollars behind something can make it the next cool product. And they've done a pretty good job of that. And, I mean, I'm not mad at them about it because we use them and like them.
Yeah, we've been using them. So speaking of using saddle setups, let's talk about how I guess we can talk about layout really quick, like what the difference is, and then go into our from a saddle to a tree stand, and then like what the big differences are, just overview, and then we'll go into talking about how our setups are different and what they entail, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big difference is, let's go this direction. To hunt from a tree, you have to have a way to get up the tree, and you have to have a way to stay in the tree. And that's kind of the definition of tree stand hunting. You go back to like a ladder stand, and it's all one piece. You got a ladder that goes up to a platform you sit on. You got a lock on. You have some type of climbing mechanism, and then you've got a platform with a seat on it. Saddle hunting, technically, is just removing the seat from the platform. However, you're condensing things and making it a lot smaller and making it a whole lot easier to hang in the tree and carry in, and that's the difference. Because
you also don't have to carry a tree harness in if you're involved in safety measures.
Yes, yeah.
So
if you practice,
your seat doubles as your harness, essentially, your safety harness.
Yeah, and you can use that as a regular harness if you hunt in a tree stand too.
Which I did.
Yeah.
I did several times this
Hunter
year.
the Hunter did that too.
Hunter the Hunter has done that. And y'all don't know this guy, but he's coming soon, y'all. He's coming soon.
So from there, pretty much that Ascension system can be whatever you want it in either setup.
What'd you use this year?
I used the cam over style steps 90% of the time or more, which are like
made by Primal.
Primal, yeah.
So pretty awesome deal.
Yeah, they're kind of knockoffs.
Don't go buy them because we might need some. So
they're
we don't want to be sold
knockoffs of an expensive product, but they a cheap product. I'm pretty sure $24 was what it was for 4 steps.
They were 22 when I bought them.
Yeah, something like that. They are not expensive.
Cheap. Yeah.
Yes, and they are a little clanky if you don't watch out because they got these metal buckles on them. I think I got mine this year like in August, so I didn't have a lot of time to do any messing around with them or whatever. But I think that with just a little bit of extra spinning, you could turn them into something that's real quiet. And with those 4 steps, I could consistently get to 15-foot plus height of saddle platform, like platform level. Now, I am a monkey in a tree.
Yeah, you are.
And
KC is... If you haven't seen any videos of KC, he is upper body strong.
That's right. Very much so.
T. Jones is long and not strong.
Built like an
top.
orangutan for sure. But with those steps, what I started doing was hanging the first step like at waist high. So you get, 3 foot plus on your first step. It's real hard to get your foot up there for just that one, but you can hang the second one at like 6 or 7 foot and get up there with your hands, and then you've got something to grab a hold of, and then climb your legs up. And what really helps with the saddle more than anything is that I used a lineman's belt way more than I ever have because it's just really convenient and already there. And when you have a lineman's belt, man, you can you're way more secure in the tree, and you can take time because you're just leaning out, and pretty set, almost like you're sitting down while you're putting your tree steps up, and you can spread your steps out a little further too because you're doing that. So I think the lineman's belt helps a ton in getting that extra height.
For sure, it helps with just the whole setup. And like so much easier than when we were first doing it. A lot of times we were just like, one arm holding onto the tree, one arm putting the step on.
It saved me from falling one time this year too.
Yeah,
because I slipped. One of those with any tree step.
I don't even know if I've heard this story yet.
You might not have, because we were hunting in different places. With any tree stand step, if you got really muddy boots, it can be pretty dangerous. And that happened to me. I had real muddy, gumbo like boots going up, and I had a situation where like I just put my heel down on one of those steps and it just whoop, right off. So I kind of just right away went into a recliner.
Little bar that goes
yes,
across.
Exactly. It's kind of sketch.
Yeah.
And kind of got my hand between my lineman's belt and the tree, which wasn't a lot of fun, but it's better than falling on the ground.
Yeah, it is.
So
it is
nice to have.
I used the Muddy Pro Stick this year, pretty much exclusively, and I have those primal steps. But this is something you're going to talk about in a little while. Once you get a system going and you're hunting a lot, it's tough to get you got to dig into boxes and find your other system and then put it together and see how it fits on your backpack and everything else. And so I just didn't do that really.
Yeah.
And those Muddy Sticks, I can get a little bit higher with those usually than I can with the primal because I'm not a monkey. And
well, there's 2 steps.
There's 2 steps. Yeah.
So I could get higher with those too than I can with those primals. I just like you were saying.
But I hunted 13 to 16 foot most of the time, so which is where you were hunting.
Did you 4-stick it most of the time with that, or was it 3?
Yeah,
really?
mostly, yeah.
Just a bit comfortable steps between
I
each
didn't
two?
take long steps. That's part of the safety factor for me, too. And I use my lineman's belt most of the time, but there's just some situations where, and usually, after the 3rd step, I'm using it pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, those first couple steps, I'm going up. I'm just
one of the times whenever a lineman's belt is not as handy is when you're climbing a tree that does have branches and stuff around. It gets because what's nice about a lineman's belt is you kind of flip that thing up on the backside of the tree, and you never have to remove it. Well, if you got branches and all this stuff that kind of maneuver around, it's more hassle than it's worth because when you do have those branches, a lot of times you can hang on to that stuff and be safe. Now, guys, don't fall out of a tree because you didn't put your lineman's belt on. Use it whenever you can.
Do what you feel comfortable doing.
Exactly.
100%. Because there are safety police all over YouTube that will get you.
Oh my goodness, safety police! Talk about back the blue, dude. That is
they got it.
They are into it. So I guess we shouldn't move on from the step thing without mentioning that having a couple screw-ins where legal is sometimes a game changer because if you got a good sharp screw-in, just whatever those API or whoever makes them, I don't really know, Ameristep a lot of times, little green things, you can use that thing, like I said, we're legal because a lot of public land it's not, or on private, you can do what you want to, hopefully, for I don't know how long, but
who knows?
Who knows, freedom. So that's all I'm saying. Anyways, as your first step or on a place that the tree's real weird or there's some other limbs and stuff in the way, or even to have a bow hanger, or just having that one single step. One thing I found that was kind of difficult is a lot of times I like to have a step that's kind of at the same height as my platform. That way I can step over into my platform as opposed to having climb up onto the platform.
Yeah, that's how I always do too.
And sometimes it's difficult to hang a real step there because you end up with a double strap thing going on and your platform might bind into the strap that your step is and go to cutting that thing or whatever, and a screw-in's real handy for that.
Yeah, dude, I'll tell you what, man. To me, this is me. I don't know, what's holding this legislation up essentially, but they should allow you one screw in. I think on your hunt.
That's
you know
bad.
what I mean? On a lot of these, in a lot of these
they
states.
allow woodpeckers.
Yeah,
right.
They do allow them, and they don't have any kind of vendetta against them, or
No,
you can't go out and shoot them for $5 and turn the tails in or whatever. So they don't mind those. It would be nice if you could have one screw in, and because a lot of times you get up there in a tree and you got nowhere to hang your bow. So you're just going to hold your bow with a sharp broadhead on the end of it while you're trying to get a grunt call out or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That could be dangerous too, and it really bugs me that that's not a thing.
Do you think it's the danger factor? That's why they don't use screw-ins?
I think it's the
tree
they don't
thing.
want to kill the trees. Yeah.
I never really thought about that until a couple years ago. Somebody said, that's just a meat hook hanging out there if you were to fall. I was like, you're kind of right. You know, it could get kind of dangerous. But any step you hang on a tree is that way. Those muddy steps. No, those primals, they wouldn't hurt you as bad. They'd bruise you, but they aren't going to rip you.
Yeah.
But most steps would.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Don't fall.
We've got to your
Hook up the tree.
platform at this point in time.
Yeah.
This is where things go to changing. Tyler, I will make a confession, and this is not out of necessity or branding from sponsors or anything, because we aren't sponsored by about near anybody. So just a few. Thank y'all very much for your help. But nobody pays us to use their tree stand or saddle or whatever, right? But I did use a saddle all season, never hung in a tree stand for a couple reasons, but we'll talk about that in a little while. Why don't you tell me the major difference in the platform stuff since you did use both this year?
So the difference is size more than anything. A lot of the tree stands put up the same if they're a hang hunt. You tighten them down and then let the platform down.
And that causes like some tension whenever you put the platform down.
Yeah, it brings the post out a little bit, and I guess causes tension. So
you probably used one that had a bracket this year, didn't you?
Yeah, I used a bracket stand a couple times this year, and I don't think I used on public land. I don't think I ever used a tree stand. Can't think of a time that I did, but on my spot here, and I used it as a. Well, maybe I didn't. I can't remember if I actually moved that stand, but I did hang it. The main difference in the platform is just size difference. And so for me, I can hunt out of that tethered platform, which is a Phantom platform, I think. Predator platform. So I can hunt out of that for an afternoon or a morning, but I just don't think I could do it all day. Even just the saddle aspect, not super comfortable. And I think out of a tree stand, I could do that, and I have done it, and that's not even comfortable, really. But, yeah, the main difference is that. I mean, and I think that when it comes to a tree stand, there's the differences in tree stands would be that there's bracket stands that you hang the bracket, then you hang the stand, and then there's stands that you just hang onto the tree, with the strap or whatever. With the saddles, there's a lot of different moving parts. There's a lot of different things that we could do. So let's talk about our setups a little bit, maybe, and how they may have differed the way we use those particular aspects of each saddle.
So the diaper part. Is that what you're saying? All of it.
The whole setup, man.
Okay.
I mean, we're going into how do you hang? How do you like to sit there?
Gotcha. So the platform part of a saddle is what we call the Predator, right? And then we have the tethered ones. And I painted mine. You didn't. That's probably the first thing where we differed a little bit. I painted mine like
purple.
Yeah, or something like that.
Purple,
I can't remember.
pink.
But anyways, I don't know. I thought it made it a little bit more concealed in the tree. Looking at it, maybe it doesn't. I like to feel cool, and I felt cool painting it, so I did.
Yeah.
But they're essentially like a tiny muddy tree stand.
Yeah.
Because they use that Versa button thing as the way you attach it.
Wolf.
Yeah, I guess so. I've never messed with one, but I bet that's what they're like. And they level the platform the same way too. No, Muddy's actually, they level it on that. My Hawk stand is the one that has the screw that levels the platform.
Yeah.
So to level the platform on one of these Phantoms, there's like a screw at the base of it. It's hard to explain this, but you screw that thing in and out, and it allows the platform to go different degrees compared to like the flat Earth, right? So if you're in a tree and the tree,
Kanye,
chill
with the flat Earth,
flat dark Earth, right? So FDE.
No, it's not Kanye though anymore, right?
I don't know.
That's what's his name? Plays for Brooklyn, Kyrie. Well, he doesn't play. He just takes off time now. But anyway, yeah, he's a flat earther too.
Really?
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry, I digress.
So that's probably where things start changing a little bit. I really never figured out quite how I liked my platform, because with a tree stand, you're always wanting level ground and you're adjusting to get that. Whereas in a saddle, level's kind of nice, and then sometimes leaning that thing down a good bit's kind of nice.
I agree.
Kind of depends on how you're sitting in the saddle. I like to tether myself in pretty tight to the tree. And I'm not much of a sitter. I'm much more of a leaner, I figured. I think because more than anything, when you're a sitter, you are much more swinging in a tree.
Yeah.
When you're leaning, you're kind of in a tree stand, but
I can't sit for very long without my legs just going to sleep.
Yeah.
Really, if I'm fully sitting, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I've done some sitting all the way down and like got my legs off the platform, like to just kind of give them a break or whatever. Like I did that all day sit. Actually, we just launched that video. It's not the craziest, coolest video, but there is a crazy rut chase in there where I did a all-day sit on some Texas public. I kind of like let my tether down and gave myself a whole lot more room and kind of just like swung in a hammock almost for a while. But when you're tied to the tree like that and being a leaner per se, a level platform is pretty nice because you're really just standing.
You're right. That's what I found too.
Yeah.
Just stand. Like a lot of times I would, if the tree allowed it, I would stand and be on a level platform. I found the exact same thing. Like when there was times like that I was leaning back pretty far, like for instance, say the tree is actually leaning away from you a little bit, you would be leaning kind of far a lot of times, and putting that platform angled down a little bit helps with your feet. For some reason, like your calves, if you're on the edge of that platform and it's not leaning down, your calves are like freaking out,
Yeah.
So.
It's kind of weird. One of the things you don't think about is like having a really stiff soled boot helps quite a bit. I hunted with rubber boots a whole bunch, and they don't have that. And that you end up, you got a big flat platform, but if you're doing much heavy leaning at all, not really sitting, but that was kind of the difference is like I'd be up on the tree standing or leaning pretty heavy depending on how the tree was, like you were saying. You end up with just like the outer edge of the platform being the only thing actually contacting your boot a lot of times. Either that or like doing a foot to leg configuration that doesn't feel very natural. Your legs and feet are made to be like a 90-degree angle, where your ankle is. That's a good word to use. Ankle. Yeah. So the angle of the ankle. And if you don't, then you like end up kind of like pointing your toes. I'm doing this here while we're talking. It's hard to describe, but you end up like pointing your toes. Like, okay.
Then you punt a football.
If you're sitting down, like you punt a football. If you're sitting down, guys, right now, stick your feet out and then make your toes touch the ground.
Oh no, they're driving.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
They just hit the accelerator.
They accelerate and the brake at the same time. That's how it is if you don't want that single bar kind of pushing into the arch of your foot. So the more angled down you can make your platform, the better for that situation. Anyways, that's probably enough talk on that.
That's a lot of platform talk.
Yeah, a lot of platforming there. Yeah. So tell me your configuration of your, we're going to refer to this as the diaper. That's kind of what we've been saying. So
I run my diaper pretty loose. Actually, the belt is tight. But
I cannot keep the belt tight.
Yeah.
I don't have hips, man.
Yeah.
And I know I just asked you to tell me, so I have a real hard time with podcasts.
It's good.
I'm not good at this.
It's good.
But so mine always tries to fall off, and I'm always just trying to crank that thing because I don't have good hips, and it just always I feel like it's falling off my butt.
While you're in the tree or while you're walking in?
While I'm walking in and hanging and all that stuff. Yeah.
When I'm in a tree. Hanging?
I mean, hanging as in going up and down. Yeah.
Well, you have 2 power packs on the sides or whatever they're called, right?
Yeah.
I only have 1. So it sets it at a different angle, possibly.
We need to get you. I thought that whenever.
Like if you got 2 pulling equally down, it slips it off there. But if you got one side's holding, the other side's.
That's true. It's kind of like a 6-shooter on your side there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Pants up.
Yeah.
So So I keep the belt as tight as possible. And then I run the straps, the crotch straps, like real loose. I can't stand tight crotch straps.
See, I keep mine fairly tight, but I figured out if you do them too tight, then that's another thing that pulls your saddle down. But if they're too loose, I can feel those straps like between my legs when I'm walking. I don't like that either.
Dang,
so, yeah.
You do have some narrow hips.
I do, dude.
No, that's how I run mine pretty much as far as the diaper goes. I've got the little power pack or whatever on the side, and I've got both my lineman's rope and my tether in there.
What else do you keep in your saddle? Anything?
Man, I kept that accessory deal, that like belt
like the
or whatever.
Extra strap.
Yeah, I kept that in there all year. I don't think I used it one time.
Yeah, I probably will take that out of mine next year too.
Yeah, I mean it's handy when you need it, I'm sure, but I just made do. And I literally forgot it was in there until like December.
I used it with you when we shot that pig on your property, but that was kind of more of a trial run for saddles. So I was like, well, let's just try this thing out.
Well, speaking of pigs, guys, we got a pig hunt coming up. If you are going to be a part of that, it's closing down ASAP. So you better get in that for sure.
Is that so short for ASAPual?
That's actually all shooting all pigs.
Perfect. Perfect. Go buy you a T-shirt and make sure that you're put in to be there.
And let Brian Koch know you like the slogan.
That's right.
So anyway, we are talking about saddles, though. And saddles, or my saddle in particular with the ropes, basically, for those of you that don't know, what you do is you get up, you got this diaper on, right, and you've got these two ropes. One's a lineman's rope, one's a tethered rope. And so when you get up onto your platform and you're about to tether in, what you typically would want to do is you're linemaned in, so around the waist pretty much and around waist level around the tree, and then you would tether up. And I'm running my tether, I think I was putting it on the tree about chin height or so, maybe like shoulder height, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. I thought I would like it higher at first, and I found out that I didn't like it as too high. You know?
The higher you are, the more you're swinging.
Yeah, and the more it's pulling your diaper up your crack.
Yeah.
So I decided to run it about shoulder height to chin height, somewhere in there a lot of times. Just depends on the tree, and you just kind of got to hunt a few times with it and figure out how you like it. But then you would put that tether on the tree, and connect to a bridge, which is basically just a rope that kind of swings from hip to hip that's not super long, and you would attach it with a carabiner, and then you take your lineman's belt off, put it back in your deal. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, and then, for us, we're hanging a tree arm for cameras, and we're hanging, trying to find a place to put
that
a bow
thing like knee high.
Yeah,
because you end up you put your camera base knee high, because then you gain 4 inches with the camera arm normally, and then the camera goes on top of that with a shotgun mic normally. So you're talking about pretty much another foot of stuff sticking up, and you have to keep that from hitting your bridge if you want to swing your camera around. Mm-hmm. I know that's not the situation for a ton of people, but yeah if you think about that.
The best way is just to know where the deer are going to come from.
Yeah, or to not film your hunts.
That's actually the best way. So does your setup look any different? It's
pretty much the same. I did hunt with my tether even lower than you sometimes. Mm-hmm. That was usually tree dependent. Like one in particular was whenever you shot your Texas public land buck, I was hunting out of a tree that had a V kind of right where you'd normally hang your tether, so I had to hang it a little bit lower. And that wasn't bad. It was just kind of more like I was attached kind of at the waist at the tree almost.
Yeah, you just got to kind of stand up and hope that...
Yeah, and it worked fine.
Yeah.
I did sometimes adjust how much... bridge rope I had out. I didn't run it all the way out. There's a Prusix down here on your waist where you can kind of tighten that thing down and stuff. I kind of mess with that from time to time, and making a longer tether and a shorter bridge and vice versa. But yeah, it was about that. I hung with it way too high a few times. Mm-hmm. And I ended up swinging a lot. I just feel like you're less balanced because you have more weight up in the sky and less weight on your platform. I like to have a lot of weight on the platform, is what I figured out.
Yeah, me too.
I guess one of the big things that we need to mention too is that in a saddle versus a tree stand, most of the time in the saddle, or all the time in the saddle, you're going to be facing the tree that you're in, right? So if you hang in a really big tree, you lose a lot of what you can see without swinging around. So you do add some motion there. Whereas if you were sitting in a tree stand, you're going to sit and hang with your tree on your back, but that puts you more out in the open and exposed possibly to deer that are coming in. So that's kind of the... Or
you could put your tree stand on the opposite side of the tree and... stand up or whatever, face the tree or whatever.
Yeah. And using a tree stand too, you're going to have the safety harness on that's going to be tethered to the tree at somewhere as well. So it's kind of all the same system, just a different way of distributing your weight, pretty much.
When I shot my deer on my property this year, I was tethered with a saddle system, but standing on a tree stand basically. And so kind of, I was in an ash tree, so there was multi-trunk, and I was able to, how did I do that? I think I tethered pretty much out in front of me, but then when I ended up, I had my stand in one trunk and my tether on another tree. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
It's fancy.
Because it was all pretty close together there. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. There's obvious differences in the way you would use a saddle and a tree stand, the way you can use a saddle and a tree stand. And so the first thing I'm going to throw out there to you is a scenario. I'm going to ask you what you would do and how you would use it, and what you'd be looking for. So you're going to be hunting public land, and you're thinking, okay, I've got to walk in about a mile, and this is a legit mile. This ain't one of them things you hear on YouTube about walking a mile.
Are you just describing my Kansas hunt right now? Is that what you're doing?
I am. You're gonna walk about a mile in.
Yeah.
It's cold, windy, so you have some noise cover, and you're gonna go in there and you're gonna try to find. You know that there's some big trees in there, big around diameter trees, and you're gonna be hunting rut travel corridor kind of, and you're gonna be. You don't know exactly what the trees are going to look like. You don't know for sure that you're going to be able to get hung in one of the big trees. So you might have to use like a smaller tree, which you see some brushy ones on the aerial. And you're going to go in there and you're going to, you don't know this yet, but you're going to shoot a giant 9-point.
In that scenario, something very similar to that played out this year. And I used a saddle. And I probably would not change that.
What's the first thing that makes you go saddle instead of tree stand?
The distance walked through heavy cover.
Yep.
Because I can carry a tree stand a long ways, but when you carry it through heavy cover, you can remember my old complaints was that I hate getting these briars and junk hung up on this tree stand that's on my back, and you're Ninja Turtled hardcore, where I have pretty wide shoulders for my size, and that stand, even most stands hang outside of that. And like in your mind, when you're walking through stuff, you just say, I can make it through that. And your body, like you're used to the width of your body. And when your tree stand's wider than that, you end up hanging up on stuff and catching stuff, ripping your backpack, all this kind of stuff that happens.
If y'all remember, we had this guy named Jack that used to hang out with us, and we made him use a tree stand one time after using a saddle several times.
Yeah, he got to start easy.
He did not like that tree stand. he was like, well, if we had a saddle, this would be a lot easier. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We understand.
Yep, for 3 years or more, really. But 3 years is the element. But yeah, I think that, and then you add in that I'd never been there. I don't know what I'm going to see when I get there. And to be quite frank, there were some good trees in there to hang a good tree stand in. And if I knew I was going to go back in there a couple times, I might think about taking a tree stand in there. But the thing with the saddle is that whenever you wear that thing, you are not overcommitted with weight or bulk. So you don't feel bad about saying, you know what, I got in here a mile back. I can't find the tree I want to sit in. I'm going to lay over here by this, hickory stump and shoot a deer. Not lay, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like get
sit
down
on the ground.
Yeah, sit on the ground, and when you have a big old tree stand and the steps and stuff that go with it, sometimes you're like, I'm going to use this son of a gun because I carried it in here a mile, And
tell you one thing I just now popped into my mind, even though I asked you the question.
It's all right, let's hear it.
Is 2017 maybe? I don't know, maybe even 2018 because it was January. We were hunting Texas Public. We went way back to an ag field, and we went way back in. We had these big old packs on because it was going to be cold that night. And we were sweating hard by the time we got in there because it's so far through the greenbrier and stuff. And we're trying to make a decision on where we're going to hang. And we stop to take a pee, and we end up putting our packs down or whatever, or I did or whatever. And because the straps on those tree stands a lot of times are so thin, it was hurting my shoulders real bad. So I took it off for a second, and that ended up keeping us from killing a spike. That happened.
Maybe two.
You would think a spike could walk past some ground sand a couple hours later, but that was not the case.
Not the case. Yeah. Whenever you're just rolling light and easy like that, you know, especially if you don't have, dude, if we didn't have camera gear.
Oh, no.
We run some 10-pound setups pretty much right now.
Yeah.
It would not weigh very much. Yeah. And when you have a saddle, my thing with the two pouches, I carry a little bit of stuff in my pouches, not a ton, but like headlamp and stuff like that. It might weigh 6 or 8 pounds, but it's in a different spot than backpack weight, like a tree stand is. It's strapped around my waist, so you're distributing that weight across your body a little bit more. Right. And it's you don't even know that thing's there most of the time unless it's falling off like mine was. Yeah. But I noticed if I actually would wear a thick leather belt, because I wear kind of tactical belts or whatever you want to say, like a little thin webbing type belt a lot of times. If I would wear a leather belt it would give that thing something to grab a hold of on my hips, and I could cinch my leather belt down pretty hard, and it wouldn't fall down as much. But yeah, so those are probably the two main factors. And I would carry in 4 steps because I don't know what I'm going to run into. I brought the cam over steps, but those don't work on big trees very good. So a regular step would probably be better, like your muddies or whatever. They don't work on giant trees because the ropes aren't long enough, but on big trees they work. Those cam over steps, it just seems like to me it's hard for them to like get their bite on a big tree as well. Maybe I don't know how to do it the best, but they work really good on trees that are like probably 12 to 18 inches in diameter. And that's what I hung in, was like a 14-inch diameter cottonwood, and shot a big deer. So it was cool. Yeah. One of the things that you got to make sure when you're setting up with that saddle is that just like, but differently, a tree stand, there will be places that you can't see and shoot to as well as you can others. And pretty much in a saddle, if you're a right-handed shooter, all of your left side needs to be where you think deer are going to come from. And all of your right side is quite a bit more difficult to get shots at. It's real difficult to get a shot like at 5 o'clock, that not PM, but 5 o'clock, if you're using the clock as your directions, and where you're facing is high noon. Like way around, that's tough, man. I never shot like that this year. Every shot that I took from a saddle was like over here in the like 10 to 6 range, and when you hang in a tree stand, it's you don't see behind you near as much, and it's hard to shoot around the tree behind you. So you have those options. Yeah. So Tyler, you have anything you want to add to that, or
no? Well, okay. Yeah, actually, maybe. So to me, that's where a tree stand shines. I feel like is that I feel like you can get more shots out of a tree, more comfortable shots out of a tree stand.
Yeah,
because you have the tree that blocks your shots, and then everything else. Like theoretically, you can get a shot anywhere else with a saddle. You've got the tree blocking your shot, possibly, and then you've got quite a big range behind you that's very tough to shoot, and it can be done. And I'm trying to think of how I shot that Texas buck this year, the Texas public buck, but I was definitely leaning big time.
I think you shot it. You were on that side of the tree, and you had a good shot at him, but he ended up getting around on you.
I feel like because I was facing the tree, or whatever, and I ended up shooting him back over here. So I can't remember if I turned and did my whole lean, with my front hanging down essentially. I don't remember that, but yeah, I think that's a definite advantage for you with a tree stand, Yeah, but, and then also the sight factor. So, for instance, in Illinois, when those bucks were coming in, I had to. I would have set up different if it was by myself, probably too. But basically, the direction that those deer were going to come from and where my shots were going to be on this tree were kind of far enough. They were far enough across the spectrum that I was able, I was not able to see the deer coming in. I had to get shots to where I needed to. Comfortable shots, I basically just had to face away from where they were probably going to come from. Yeah, so that kind of stinks on.
Now, here's one thing that I have noticed about a saddle in that maybe gives it a little bit of a redeeming factor. In a tree stand, you're really limited to 2 axes of adjustment. You can go up and down, or you can go left and right to get shots. In a saddle, you can do some lean stuff to get around stuff.
I definitely.
Yeah.
Actually, the buck that I shot on my property was out of a tree stand, but with a saddle on. And because I had the tether to the tree, I was able to get that shot.
You lean way out.
Yeah, I was leaning way out because my only hole where he ended up being, I wasn't planning on shooting him there, was through this greenbrier stuff. And if I had not been able to lean way out, if I was attached on a harness, a normal tree harness, wouldn't have shot that deer, or I wouldn't have got a shot then at least.
I have kind of rigged it a little bit before, where you take your regular tree harness and kind of run your arm around the strap to where you can kind of lean against it or whatever. It's not the smartest thing to do. It's not really unsafe, but it's just kind of weird. But yeah, it's a really nice thing about that saddle is you can if there's only a softball size hole, but you got to lean way down to get it, you can usually get there. So my scenario for you have got a piece of permission property that you're going to have access to all season, but you haven't ever been there before. But like a lot of permission properties, it's got a lot of cattle stuff, a lot of ag on it, a little bit of habitat cover, and there's really, like from the aerial, you can kind of tell on X where deer are going to be moving around at, right? And there's like 5 or 6 trees in there, and about near any of those trees, they're going to be a good spot to set up depending on the wind. You just kind of adjust from there. But you've never seen it before. And you can't really, you could drive in and do the whole, Mike Hunsucker style, like drive up the truck up to it and put your tree stand up, which is real cool if you have the opportunity. Yeah. But like most permission places, it's not always the coolest thing to drive through people's pastures, and just to try to preserve that relationship, you are going to pack it in 0.4 of a mile. What you going to do?
Man, I'm probably, I'd like to say I would definitely think about a tree stand, but I think I would probably go in with a saddle because I'm not big on messing around in the dark much on properties. So, I think I would rather get in and get out that first time, say it's early in the season, and see that tree or those trees in that property and try to get in, get out, and then come back in next time with a tree stand when I know what I'm doing. Especially if it's 0.4 of a mile, I think that's enough. That you could be pretty tired when you get in there and make some mistakes and whatever else. But probably going to do that. I think that scenario sets up well in the future to be a tree stand setup. And I think that's the same thing or a similar thing that you and I have seen, except for not 0.4 of a mile, but like on our properties, we're hunting down tree stands a lot, and or we have tree stands set up at least, and I think that's the tree stand to me is a comfort winner. It's a comfortable shot winner overall, probably, and I've got a few laying around, and you can buy them much cheaper than you can buy a saddle setup. And the thing about a tree stand is as opposed to a saddle is if you don't buy multiple saddle platforms and sticks and everything like that, then you're going to have to take the saddle down every time you hunt, pretty much. So
I think that's going to be an adjustment I make on my personal property. Is I'm probably going to continue to hunt with a saddle, but I think I'm going to pre-hang some platforms all around in the trees that I like. That way, I can just go climb up in that thing.
And I don't know what that Predator platform goes for, but you might could buy some cheap aluminum. Steel stands or whatever.
Shoot, man,
that could be your platform.
I'm thinking about taking a couple 2x4s and screwing them to the tree. Yeah, honestly, because it can be that simple,
right? Sure.
And as long as you have that saddle on, you're pretty safe. It's not the same thing as an old wooden tree stand. Like that's a little bit more sketch, depending. Yeah. But do you think that? Well, one of our least favorite things to do, both of us, is to hang in a new place in the dark that we've never been to. Do you think that hunting out of a saddle makes that any better?
Yeah, I do. I think just the ease of getting through the brush in the dark is a big thing. And I think that, probably just having less weight to deal with when you're going up a tree in the dark as well. And then also that third axis of flexibility for the shots once it gets daylight. Because
you're like, dang, there's a bunch more brush right there than I thought there was.
Exactly. There's too many tree limbs in here or whatever, And then, also, sometimes you just don't know how big the trees are or where your shots are going to be. And, to me, it's not a whole lot of difference, but there's a definite difference in the size essentially the size of area you need for the platform to go in.
Yeah.
I can fit that muddy stand I have fitted into some tiny trees and you figure it out. That's the thing is you may not could put it, on this side of that branch, but you could put it on the other side of that branch and you figure it out. And I hadn't, always killed. So maybe the difference is the tether being able to be on the right side of the tree and everything, but there is a definite difference there. And so same thing with the morning hunt. Like if you don't really know, that's something that could really benefit you.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, because that predator platform, you only need like a foot of flat space on a tree, whereas on about near any tree stand, it's 18 to 20 something inches that you need a fairly consistent trunk of a tree. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but you need like a spot that doesn't have a giant knot hole or something like that.
And that's another thing is when it comes to, like you said, it has to be consistent or kind of flat or whatever in one way or another, because like if you even when you talk about not even just branches but the flatness of the tree, like you just need a small spot so that you can level your platform out. And like how many times have we seen just this weird like hump in a tree that you can't get a 20-inch post to go over it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've seen that several times, the same deal, and it just makes it very difficult because you're like, I can hunt there except for the tree trunk is doing something stupid, And it's like, that's where I need to be. So there's definite advantages when it comes to that. So I think, for me, and I'm trying to think, how many deer did we kill this year? We killed 6?
You killed 5 bucks, and I shot 1 buck. So here's your trophy.
I didn't. I was just saying, as a team, we killed 6.
I'm just trying. That's how I can keep up with it.
Sure.
And
how many were killed in the morning? 1.
You killed your home property buck in the morning.
You also shot that buck in South Dakota in the evening. So let's look at that too.
Yeah.
Killed the home property in the morning.
I killed Kansas in the evening. You killed Kansas in the evening. You killed Illinois in the evening.
Texas in the evening.
Texas in the evening.
You almost killed in Texas in the evening.
And I passed your Texas in the evening.
Yeah. Could have killed it.
Yeah.
So that I don't know exactly what that means, but it might prove the fact that we really don't like hanging in new spots in the mornings.
Trying to think if I had some places where like I could have killed in the morning. Quite honestly, if I would have hung in the right tree in the morning in Texas in January, I would have killed.
Yeah.
And I made that adjustment in the evening, and it didn't happen. But see, that's the thing, is that the evening movement was different than the morning movement.
Yeah.
So,
but you also were able to, you just weren't able to be in the right spot in the morning, possibly because you can't see.
And I knew the tree that I was going to was the one I could hang in. That might be a whole nother discussion. Picking the right tree. We've done that podcast before, but it's always a good thing to revisit.
Yeah, for sure. We might have to do that, man.
Yeah.
I think for next year, something like when I look at what helped us this year with as far as hanging and being efficient with the hangs and then killing stuff, that the Map Scout Challenge stuff last year helped us tremendously. I feel like it helped us to pick these spots and go in and kill. So I think maybe next year with a little work this year, we are able to possibly kill more in the mornings, go in.
Morning Map Scout Challenge.
Yeah, find spots on the map and go kill them in the morning. And so, with that, we've been doing a little bit of postseason scouting. We haven't put together any new Map Scout challenges yet. We're trying to figure out if that's something we want to do and if we can do it. And I think it is something we want to do, but it just takes a lot of effort to put those together and to actually bring those to you. So we're going to see if we can do that. But we have been doing some postseason scouting. And one thing I would say, there's a lot of people that listen that know that we hunt in East Texas, and they hunt in East Texas too, and that's why they listen to us. So here, I'm going to throw you guys a bone right now. Privet berries are in full production right now.
They are.
So that is maybe not super easy to focus down and find the exact food source, but if you possibly could treat those as food source right now, because they definitely will hammer.
They're raging right now.
Yeah.
I noticed that the other day too, and that's the thing that we haven't really seen deer eat in person, but that spike I shot in 2019 had him that was like half his stomach contents was that privet berry.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, you can probably zone in on that. Another thing that I've been really noticing from my postseason scouting is that if you can get out in January, right after deer season, it's a great time to scout people, man. Because me and a buddy actually went out the other day while you were bird hunting, and we got on his trail that he was making to this particular stand. I was like, man, these deer, I've really been walking through. And he was like, well, this is actually the my trail that we're walking on. It's like, oh. So there's like those little, we've seen that in other places too, especially like you get these guys that use the same place as their kind of their hunting lease almost. They hunt the same stand every day. Like you can see evidence of people in a lot of different ways. And then like you can still see trail cameras that are hung in certain places this time of year. And you can even see scarred up trees where people did have tree stands and, you know, places where guys have been cutting down stuff they ain't supposed to be cutting down. You know,
flag and tape, broken arrows.
Yep, found some of that the other day too.
Did you?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of times on Texas Pub, it's a little bit difficult to learn a ton, except from like rut sign, because the deer really do move around a lot depending on food sources. But you can learn a ton about where people had been that year, and I think that's one of the things I really learned. At least the last couple trips I've been out there.
Yeah, we hung, you and I hung some cameras not too long ago too. Man, I felt good about that spot.
One of those is going to be bad to the bone.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have. We found some. You know, we set out. We're going to release this video hopefully soon. We set out to basically, we found a spot a couple of years ago, hung a camera, didn't think too much of it, and a year later, we found out that they were everywhere in November in there, especially. And we were like, why did we not check that camera? So we hunted it this year a little bit, and we found out that this is a spot that not a whole lot of people are going into, and there's a lot of deer using it. And so, like, why does this do this? And so we set out to find other spots that are similar in habitat and diversity and edge and everything, and you know, possibly like off the radar a little bit. And we hung some cameras in some areas and found some stuff like that. And I think that's a good way to look at it this year. Like if you ended up the season with an area that was holding deer and you weren't seeing much pressure from people, you might go try to find a few more places just like that. You know, and that could be particular to WMAs or like as a whole, or just spots on a WMA. You know, but
it could even be on your hunting lease. You know, it could be this, like I know of one guy in particular who has seen some really good camera action on a spot that doesn't look very good because it's kind of close to the highway and this and that, but it's because everybody drives down this, you know, 400-yard stretch of gravel to get kind of to the parking place on the lease for where they all go, and they just drive right past deer. You know, it's kind of a motif of hunting, like deer are going to be where there's not people. So I think that's one of the things too that we need to examine and think about on that property that we did have some luck on this year is does that mean that we should stay out of there and not touch it and let it be a sanctuary until like X date and then go in there? You know,
like
I think
when the rut happens, you're saying?
Yeah, because if you go in there and you leave a little bit of sign here and there, a little bit of pressure here and there, like you're just doing the same thing that everybody else is doing other places that are pushing the deer over there.
I mean, I definitely would agree with that. Like, I think that what you're going to do most of the time when you bump a deer in October is it's going to be a doe. And when you start squeezing out some doe families, all of a sudden there aren't as many bucks coming through in November, you know. But you go in there in November, does are on edge. And the thing is, this is what I love about the rut. People always try to act hard, like, oh, I like killing my deer out of the rut. You know, I love hunting before the rut because they're so consistent. And it's like, well, it doesn't always happen.
Maybe
everywhere.
your deer are.
Maybe your deer are. But here's the thing: is like, I love hunting the rut because we're all imperfect, right? And we go in a lot of times and we spook deer. And I've seen this happen so many times where like a doe comes in and catches me moving. And like I whip my head around, I see her, she sees me. It's like, oh, I'm toast. Stomps her foot, and then all of a sudden her ears lay back and her head drops down and she takes off running, and there's a buck behind her and she forgets that I'm in the world. Like, I love the fact that a buck can cover up, you know, like literally, and this is something we talk about a lot. We did some videos on like secondary creek crossings and the way to hunt them and stuff earlier this season or whatever. And like a lot of times you're setting up, blowing your wind at a particular trail because you have to blow it somewhere. And you're just hoping that you can shoot the buck before he gets there. And if he's chasing a doe, like hard, a lot of times she'll just go straight through your wind. But if it's kind of like, oh, we're just all going to feed, but I'll nose you around because it's October 20th, then you're like, she might smell you and he might freak out too, you know? So the heart of the rut is just so much fun. Dude.
Yeah. And even whenever that's ramping up, I think about, our experience in Iowa in 2019. You remember, of course you do. We were walking in to that spot where we saw all the deer raging, and we bumped a big buck who was locked down with a doe, which was weird for October 29th or whatever. I think it was the 29th. That should have been.
Yeah, I think so.
And you were heartbroken, and I was like, well, that wasn't good. I was kind of with you. But we ended up seeing that buck like a couple hours later chasing does around and posturing to the buck that we were really trying to shoot.
Yeah.
Like, just that magic time of year, man, you can get away with a lot. Deer are forgetful, too. Like I feel like on October 12th, you bump a mature buck out of his bed, he's pretty ticked. On October 29th, he's going to run away and smell something. And wait a second. Oh, yeah, exactly.
This is something I love to do.
That's right. That's right. That's kind of dangerous. This is real cool. Yeah. So, I think it's, we definitely, that's one of the things that we talked about and we're still going to try to strive for is that, I'd like to be better in Texas. I'd like for us to be able to kill some deer here in October. That way it really, we can take the gloves off and go chasing some stuff even more than we already did. But it's tough to do, man. But that was kind of one of our goals is to kill the October Texas buck this year, and we did not even come
for the
close.
last 4 years, it's been a goal.
Yeah.
So we that's the thing is like what normally happens is we're still really, really blue collar type of guys, and so you get into October and you're like, well, I could go out today, even though it's only, it's 88 or whatever. It's like, cold front came through and now it's going to be 83 or whatever. And you're like, still, it's 83.
Yeah.
And it's October 14th. And instead of doing this, maybe I can get off on November 14th, when I need to go back to Kansas.
And then we get Rona, and then the November 12th through what 18th was just, but whatever. Hopefully 2021 we won't have as many issues with pandemics and stuff that are new to us. And
we shall see.
Yeah, we'll see. They're gonna come up with new strains for us, but whatever.
I mean, if you can imagine it. It can be real. I don't know. Willy Wonka said it best, I think. I don't know how he said it, but he said it best.
Well, I'm no Willy Wonka, that's for sure.
No, you aren't.
But I do give out golden tickets from time to time to Texas public land hog hunts, guys. But they cost you $15. So head over to our website, get you a controversial Make 'em Squeal t-shirt. And you can be a part of our public land hunt. I think Sunday the 24th, we're going to probably cap that thing because we've got a lot of people, and we're excited about it. We're not mad about it. We're glad that y'all want to come hang out with us and do some stuff, and then us all kind of go hog hunting the next day.
Yep.
We've got some stuff processing for that. Still trying to make sure we get the right venue for this amount of people. I got some stuff in the works. Feeling pretty good about it right now. Anyways,
thanks for trusting us, by the way, guys.
Yeah,
because I know it's a weird deal to not know exactly where you're going, but it's Northeast Texas, and you don't have it's not such a big area that if you're driving a little ways that you're not going to want to drive a little bit more, right? But it's we can't really disclose the location just because we don't want people showing up and like joining the hunt when there's however many people that have already paid $15, so. And it's worth it. I mean, we're going to make this worth it. We're going to have some really awesome. We're going to have some really awesome raffles for some really cool products, man, including, I think, a 12-gauge shotgun. So it's going to be a fun night, Friday night, and then we're going to get up and we're going to go shoot some pigs Saturday and come back and tell the stories.
Yeah,
so.
It's going to be a good time. So if you are interested in doing that, get over and sign up for it. We're going to have a ton of fun doing that.
You buy the shirt, we'll send you an email, fill you in on the details.
Yes, that's right. I have found out that if you are coming from out of state, you do need to buy a 5-day hunting license, which will cost you about $45, I think. So it'll cost you less than $100 to get on this hunt, but you'll need a annual public land hunting permit, and you'll need that 5-day hunting license, and that'll get you going there. Which in the world we live in, to some people $100 isn't a ton, but it is a decent amount of money. So we appreciate you wanting to come and hang out with us. Hopefully we can get you some hog meat, and if you were to buy pork at the store, like high quality, grass fed, wild, Russian boar, it's going to be like $12 a pound. So you're getting out cheap, man, for sure.
For sure.
So,
depending on when you bought those buckshots, because if you bought them recently, you might not be getting out cheap.
Right. Yeah. Make sure and be sure of your shot whenever you shoot these pigs because
this place is a big place.
Yeah.
So don't feel like we're going to be walking on top of each other.
Yeah.
But if you're hunting, if you make friends on Friday night and you want to hunt in a group, I mean, even if you don't, like you said, just make sure.
I was saying more just so you don't waste ammo, but yes, absolutely, absolutely. Be sure of what you're shooting at and what's beyond it for sure.
Yeah.
We're going to probably talk a little bit of hunting safety. I know it can kind of get boring and drudge on a little bit, but all it takes is one accident for you to realize how important it is to be safe while hunting.
And if you're the guy that commits the accident, it still ruins your life too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It could, so it's not a good thing to be a part of, I'm sure. And we're going to avoid it. So we're going to eat Mr. Coke's barbecue, right?
So, fajitas.
Fajitas.
So what's funny is
either way, he's a losing proposition.
Brian
right?
is Yankee enough to think that just because you're using fire on meat that it's called barbecue. But we're actually making fajitas, and we're going to have probably some El Mana salsa.
Oh my goodness,
dude! Yes, it's happening, dude. We're gonna share our love with all the people.
We're just gonna get them to fill up gallons.
Yeah. Actually, 5 gallons.
5 gallon buckets.
I've got a bunch of corn sacks laying around. I wonder if they'll just pour,
chips.
They're waterproof. Yeah, put chips in
those kind of corn sacks.
Yeah.
I bought a bunch of corn sacks that were paper.
Yeah, I did some of those too, but
those could be chip bags.
I saved those tarp ones, man. Those are like nice for a lot of stuff, including game bags. For this hog meat and stuff. You can put a couple hog quarters in one of those things and carry it around. Yeah. Keep your pack kind of clean.
I have to go buy some.
Yeah, we need it. All right. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to be a pretty good synopsis of the difference in a tree stand and a saddle. And then also a whole lot of extra that y'all just
more than you wanted.
That's right. But thank y'all for hanging out with us and listening to us. I know that over the past couple weeks, content has been a little bit spotty. It's just because we're trying to kind of regroup and get ready to take off into 2021. We got a bunch of hunts coming up still. I hope y'all are getting out there and finding some stuff to hunt. Guys, I know that most of y'all probably might be done deer hunting or don't have it on your mind. If you have a state that is still open, it's a great time to go kill a deer because, man, they're so patternable if you can find one. But on top of that, dude, it is squirrel season. It is rabbit season. It is hog season. It is woodcock season.
Wood duck season.
We're about to rage, okay? This weekend, we're going to smoke some stuff, and I'm stoked. So I hope that you're excited to get out there and get in the woods. And remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.